ask about a specific sector, you have, or like type of person, you have to ask them what they need first. And so we're not going to know that. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. But another thing is when you come from a place like, what can I do as a doctor, or like asking about like, what can I do right now? Like what can I literally do right now? What are concrete solutions right now? I want to remind you that that is a bit of a colonized mindset. Obviously it's important to have solutions that we can go into right now, which is what we're talking about, like direct action, community work, speaking out, nourishing, all those things. They seem abstract, they're not that abstract. We're just using abstract concepts because they're under these concepts. But yeah, it's like, if you ask, what can I do as a religious leader to fit into the API, undocumented people movement, then, sorry, that's a really random example, but it's something that I experienced. And it's just hard because you're coming from a place that people don't understand because it's your thing. And so you should go to events and you should get that analysis and learn, and then you should bring that analysis to your communities and tell them like, well, let's think about how we can support this movement, because otherwise you're going to be like, well, how can I step into like a million different movements, and you're going to get overwhelmed and it's not going to work for you because you're thinking about yourself and not supporting other people.
So I have 3 questions. Okay, real quick, we only have a few minutes, so we're going to answer them quickly, but we also do a video web pod, something, where we web series. We will answer these questions online and post videos of them. We've been doing that every month, so go to our YouTube page. So we can answer all these questions in more detail, other ones we don't get. But this one question, and I kind of have it 3 times over. How do we replace capitalism? How do we do it immediately with this urgent crisis? It's a lot to bite off. How do we envision another world where the systems of oppression don't exist? And so when we look back in history and how indigenous people have lived, we had people from the Minnesotan camp right here a few weeks ago, and I asked the same question: what is the vision that you see? And Frida said, if everybody does their part and if everybody only uses what they need, we will live in a different world. And I think it's easy for us to want a one-formula solution. We all want that, and if it was that simple, we wouldn't be in this crisis. If there was a simple formula to solve it, we wouldn't be working so hard and fighting so hard. We know that it's a long fight. So yes, we need to tackle the immediate urgency. We need to put a band-aid, and we need to deal with the superficial problems right now, but we cannot do the work without doing this deeper work that we're doing right now and having these conversations and dismantling. So while that urge is there, let's quickly come to a solution. Don't get fooled by that. Don't stop doing this important work.
I just want to do a quick, usually we have rules of engagement that we offer in this space. And one of them is, what we're saying is a bit triggering, and this is the first time that you've heard about it in this kind of analysis. And what we ask is that you do not debrief this with the person of color. Just debrief it with someone, if you're white, just with somebody of the similar heritage is what we ask. And if you need somebody else to debrief with, we do have, who's here, European descent, and other folks that are here that can help. So please talk to them instead. So the question, or not so much of a question, mothers do socialize their sons and needs education and support to break the cycle. Yes, mothers do uphold patriarchy. Mothers do uphold capitalism. And I know that very deeply because Chinese are very patriarchal. We have 10,000 years of patriarchy behind us. And so how do we start doing that? It's by having this conversation, by naming that this is not how we need to continue, and that it affects not only in the homes that we're part of.
Okay, so this is really important. I'm concerned about the potential of veganism to be colonial. Some cultures, for example, Southern Gulf Coast, African American culture, indigenous culture, is somewhat centered around eating meat. What are your thoughts on this? So, the first thing to understand is that white people, or any people, have nothing to teach indigenous people. Nothing. Nothing. I don't care how long you've been vegan. You have nothing to teach indigenous people. Never do it. Because guess what? They didn't make climate change. And they're eating meat in the way that they eat meat, which is in fact, very ceremonial and very sacred and very spiritual. That is their culture that they have come from, but in fact, it is a very different type of culture. It is not an exploitative culture because they never take more than they need. So one thing that I will say about African American culture is that it came out of the bare necessity of having to find food when you are a slave and your slave owner will not feed you. That's where Southern cooking comes from. That's where Southern cooking comes from. I was doing a lot of reading on this. And they actually talked a lot about how, there are a lot of these famous white women on the Food Channel, doing all of these shows about Southern cooking, and it's actually co-opted cooking from the slaves, right? So that's one thing for us to understand. The other thing for us to understand is that many of these people, they have ancestral roots on the continent of Africa. And many of those peoples, in fact, actually don't eat a lot of meat. They don't eat a lot of meat. They might eat meat, but it is not the majority of their diet. That's why it's not good for them. And it's not good for any of us. The truth is, it is not good for the vast majority of the human population. So while any white person has nothing to teach people of color, particularly indigenous people, it is for us within our own communities to start educating ourselves and our loved ones, right? So if you are a person of color, it is necessary for you within your own community to start having a conversation about it. Because the truth is, I as a person of color, my family is from India, but I'm standing in solidarity with the different peoples of Africa and the different peoples of South America and the small island nations around the world who will be underwater by 2076. They will be underwater. I have to stand in solidarity with them. That means I need to take steps within myself, right? So even as a person of color, right, that means I know I need to hold myself accountable to my brothers and sisters on the other side of the world, right? That means that I need to stand with them and feel their pain. The other thing is that we need to have a conversation about the definition of oppression. Is it only oppression if it's happening to you? Just because an animal does not have language to tell you its pain does not mean that it does not feel pain. And it does not mean that it does not have language. It's a form of ableism. The animals they're not able to talk to us. They're not able to show that they're rational. They're not able to show that they have souls. They're not able to defend themselves. Therefore, we can do whatever we want with them. We have to start looking very deeply within ourselves if we want to understand the definition of oppression. This is why patriarchy is the root of all evil. It's the root of all evil, because all oppression comes from that patriarchy that comes from the ego, and the ego is the opposite of love. And that's why this movement has to be a spiritual movement. And when we're talking about what we eat, when we're talking about what we put into our bodies, my guru always told me, never turn your body into a graveyard. Never turn your body into a graveyard. Because when you eat meat, you are not just eating the dead corpse of that animal, you are eating all of the people and all of the other animals who died as a result of this agriculture, as a result of this system, as a result of this patriarchy. Your body is a sacred place. Never turn it into a graveyard. Okay.
So when we're doing this work, and we can just show up and do our work, and they organize to make sure that everything here was taken care of. That is a big shift from last year, when we were asking for pennies last year. And so thank you for everyone, because I do know that this movement, this climate movement has changed since the last year that we've been involved. So thank you, everybody.
So we're going to end it there because we're short of time and we need to clean up. If you are able to stay and help with cleanup, please do. Also, any other questions that we have, we will be talking about them on our web series, and Sarah will also be there. Even when she leaves Seattle, she will still be part of us, and she will still be taking these questions and talking about them. You will see videos of her, so look out for that. If you have more questions, send them in to us, okay? Send them into our Facebook page or our website or email or any of those things. WOC Speak Out, okay? You can look for that anywhere and find it. And on YouTube, it's Women of Color Speak Out. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you to the Duwamish Longhouse. Thank you to the Duwamish people. Thank you to the Duwamish for opening the space. Thank you to Alex Chan of Youth of Color Speak Out for being here. Thank you all. Love you all. Thank you.